Yeah, it's going. Yeah, it's going. All right, well, thanks, everybody, for showing up. There was a time a long time ago, like 30, 40 years ago, when I wrote a lot of poems. That's what most of these are, although I have tweaked them a bit. Not so much to try to reflect any cultural or technological changes. The way I've tweaked these, maybe I think a different word works better. I miss this stuff, and I'm trying to get back to it. And you're helping me to drive more of this. This is called Eloper. Sky pitches far and wide open to stars. I walk under them to her window. Night surrounds my breath. I've adopted this act from wolves that once hung on the fringe of brightness. The difference is wholly mine. I bend to the light and should be screaming for attention. Instead, I watch. She heats water for tea and knits mittens for her first nephew, a pure, wobbly-eyed child come from the most imperfect and genuine love. This is called Neon Night. I stood in the neon night and in 30 minutes drank 2 bottles of cheap wine. 15 minutes later, I was slumped, but somehow walking past pimps and whores and one live black man dead to the world, sitting in a shredded wicker chair next to a sign that said, "Real, live, naked girls inside." With this and the wine, I wandered the wrong way into an alley of terribly missing light. I heard and could smell the gathering of the homeless. It was the stir of dirty clothing and the cracking of sun and asphalt-baked shit. I could not move until someone touched my ankle and his fingers spider-walked up my leg. I vomited again and again, staggered to the insecurity of a bus station and its pigeons, passed out like the black man in a squeaky swivel chair next to a pay television. In the morning, memory, as painful as hangover, I wondered for some reason about ascetics and drunks. My headache got worse and I couldn't really tell the difference.
What year did you write that, Gar?
About 40 years ago.
Before they cleaned up New York?
Whatever. Oh, and by the way, the narrator of a poem may or may not be me. Unadvanced bio. You were there, Sally Adler, but not as I needed you when puberty came at me like nerve gas. I was sprouting hair, spilling oil from my pores, stinking like a crumpled jock from last spring in the bottom of Tom Dooley's locker. In advanced biology after lunch, Sally, you said to me, "You always smell so sweet." I could kiss you, and me thinking, if Mom only knew what these oranges were good for, I wouldn't find any more in my lunch bag. We vivisected fetal pigs, pinned back their ears for fun, and sliced deep to the lungs. Formaldehyde and stale death made us pale and dopey, even as we were supposed to learn muscle and bone. None of that obscured what you meant when you smiled and winked, figuring I was older than a freshman because of whiskers come earlier than on most guys. Sally, thinking me worth kissing, wet like an orange squirting juice, one drop from her lips, stinging citrus at the corners of her mouth, one drop rolling down her neck between her breasts as something I must absolutely retrieve with my tongue. Her flat belly quivering, nearly humming like the bird I wish to be, darting for nectar of her flower. Of course, Sally, none of that happened. In those days, they did what you did. Get drunk, bony knees high, and framing Tom Dooley's thrusting, pockmarked ass. I saw through the back window of his dad's Bronco the night of the party I was allowed to attend and was sorry I went to. This is called the ecology of expansion. Our forebears boarded ship, made passage, claimed land that never knew it was promised to anyone. The natives welcomed them and were crushed into reservations and alcoholism. Necessary spirits writhed and died under each rail spike driven west. You all know this. This is America. The ghost of wilderness, here and there hidden, and handfuls of acres, not yet divided, mostly undisturbed, captured in photos from drones or phones or satellites with ever better resolution. We know of these places, dream like pornographers, wait for the moment, unleash ourselves upon the land, call it beautiful, and proudly say, I will take this thing and change it. Okay, so the ecology of expansion, if it wasn't apparent, was my rant. Let's show up in America and kill all the and take it over. And we lose a lot in the process. Unadvanced bio, that was pretty literal.
Yeah.
It was certainly meant to illustrate my own frustrations. Neon Night, totally made it up. Although I drank too much wine and puked, but. Eloper, I made it up. It nonetheless was meant to encompass this notion I have, that nothing's perfect. I wish I could get comfortable with that. Some of the meanings of my poems, I don't even know what they are. I'm more interested in creating a feeling or evoking a feeling. Okay, so Requiem, which I don't think I'm going to have much to say about, but here it is. The farmer sits on his porch, kneads his calluses, remembers the taste of sweat, watches the sunset, and prays our next flight will be in space. The night insects sing. Their raucous dimensions lull his senses in place of a lover. Nothing can resurrect his mother's hymns now. Sad guy on a porch, by himself, nothing resurrecting mother's hymns. That's just some weird illusion of my own Catholic upbringing that was all. So this is called breeding stock. I don't know, I was 19 years old. I had a high school friend whose parents had horses. And a bunch of us teenage pals happened to be there one day. And my best buddy said to me, stay away from that horse. That horse is known to be mean and it'll bite you and kick you. So of course, what do? I go right over the horse. At the time I had a big old beard, and it was red. This is completely true and literal. Breeding stock. When the grass smelled green, I was alone and leaning against his chest-high bounds of old split rails. He stood as if sleeping, but I said anyway, fella. He stepped to me, buried his nose deep in my beard, and breathed twice, in and out. I smelled something other than horse, but different from man, and waited for dusk to fall. I had broken up with a woman. So it is that you must cut me. Go temple to temple, sever my frightening selves, or otherwise face my guts doing tricks when I burst gloriously alive for moments in time. Strip these wondrous phenomena from my heart. My impotent fists swing at the world, fall unrelieved at my sides, spittle stills on my lips. I am anxiously docile, artificially sane. The backstory here is that when I was at the University of New Hampshire in one of my workshop writing classes, the teacher in that class happened to be a woman named McKeel McBride, and, was an official published poet. One day, another poet, a guy named Donald Hall, came to campus where Donald did a reading, and then some of us got to sit down and do Q&A. And I asked him, and of course I paraphrase, "Hey Don, when it comes to poetry, do you think that the sound or the meaning is most important?" And he said, it's the meaning. It absolutely. And I remember thinking, what an asshole. And one of the poems I wrote for that next workshop class I had with McKeel McBride is called Evolution for Donald Hall. One long sun throws shadows under the frightened eaves. They leap past darkness, strain for the same beyond light. The rumbling gains like sport in video cable, and one taut molecule, split but lashing, sears the palate of thought, pauses to complete itself. The television flickers, a brief sun's set. When I got it back from McKeel, she had written on it, and I still have a copy of it. And anyway, her comments was like, "Good for you. The guy's an asshole."
Gar, you have another poem I was hoping you would read, so I don't know if...
Ancient women, probably. Ancient women. So they made small charcoal marks on gristle-stripped bone to honor the days that fell in between. The moon helped them do this. The men learned to count. Such was the beginning of time as we know it, and once history was recorded, the earth saw its end. In light of this day, you couldn't have asked for a better day. Turtles up from the mud joined the bumps on logs in the sun. Birds and bugs sounded like flutes or cats or bed springs. The honey and bumblebees hummed from dogwood to apple blossom. Everything was so mild, my part became clear. I grabbed 2 oranges and hiked to the rock on the hill. From there I watched 5 hawks gather and circle, soaring in blue, so perfect it hurt. In the valley, a farmer turned over the green, leaving a long, widening swath of brown. Then it was time. I tore into an orange. The juice set a tingling at the corners of my mouth. The hawks slid along currents towards the next town. The farmer trembled back towards the barn. I watered for the other orange, but chose to leave it with the rind on the rock, thinking, in light of this day, it would only be fair. It's called From Start to Finish. In room of sky, up in space, all stars' driveways are paved with cosmic dust. It's no big deal for the stars, but the dust is tickled. All those light years of aimless floating finally come to an end. Little Joe Dustbeck will finish his schooling in one star system. His sister Sal will join her friends in gaseous rings around big, friendly planets. And Mr. and Mrs., well, they'll hitch rides on the backs of accelerating photons, sharing quarks and foibles all the way to Earth, where they'll be fruitful and multiply in every corner and under all of our beds.
That's great.
And that's pretty much it.
That's great.
Excellent.
Thanks, Jerry.
And I thank you all again.
Sorry, we weren't barking.
Hey, how's it going?
You can hit the
Hi,
button.
Asa.
Hi, everybody.